I see in Fight Club the strongest and smartest men who've ever lived. I see all this potential, and I see it squandered. God damn it, an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need. We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no great war, no great depression. Our great war is a spiritual war. Our great depression is our lives. We've all been raised on television to believe that one day we'd all be millionaires and movie gods and rock stars, but we won't. We're slowly learning that fact. And we're very, very pissed off. Yeah.
If you look at how all of this has been constructed, you can see that what actually happened at the meeting with Weishaupt in 1773 when they put this system in place is they constructed a system whereby once created it would be a self-perpetuating organism, and they, the bankers, they who control the money supply, would be standing on the outside of this organism. And all they have to do to keep this organism functioning is certain rituals now and then, certain things to keep this system functioning, to keep the human mindset in the place that it is. And really, the system itself, when you look at the system itself, it's this energetic life form that controls humanity. It only exists on paper, and it exists because we give it our energy. But ultimately, there's no one really at the helm. It's just this system that, once created, it perpetually makes itself more efficient. And efficiency to the system is simple black and white mathematical digital efficiency. It removes humanity from the equation. So once this system is put in place, it's designed to eventually turn humanity into a virtual robot society, because everything will be regimented, everything will need to be digitized and cross-referenced, and all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed, because it's like a computer algorithm, this entire system. But there's ultimately no one at the helm. And the elite have simply constructed this system, and they've positioned themselves so that they are on the outside of it. I'd be surprised if a Rothschild ever even gets a parking ticket. They can do anything they want. They're not answerable to anybody because they constructed the system in such a way that they would not be answerable to anybody, and they would be sitting outside of the system. And this is the international banking cartels I'm talking about here, folks. I'm not talking about your average banker down Main Street. And, folks, the way this elite banking cartel has positioned themselves to be outside of the system is because it's a corporate system, so therefore it runs on money. If you are the one who issues the currency, and you issue an interest-based currency to the people within the system, then you arrive at a situation where the people within the system are controlled by the currency. And because you issue that currency, you are effectively on the outside of the system. So you've got to understand that these people also constructed the legal system, and the legal system is a corporate system, and it always comes down to the money. Money is a talisman for control, my friends. It's designed to keep people in a state of shortage, and it's designed to make them completely subservient to the system. That's why everything has a dollar value attached to it. And this attention we give to money and this need for money is one of the things that keeps us locked into the system. And the control of this money is what keeps the elite outside of the system. And this system, this meme, this energetic life form that is this self-perpetuating organism, it only survives because of the energy it takes from the human race. We give it our energy, we give it our attention, we believe that it is real, and so we feed it every day. We feed it through our fear of it. We believe that if we stand against this system, we will be hurt in some way, our lives will be disrupted, things will go terribly wrong for us personally, because the system is designed to do that.
And if we look at our system today, our corporate state today, and our corporate constitution today, that's where it comes out. Because most of the harms, most of the violations of rights, of people's rights, and the harms to life and community, which corporations are causing today in this country, are considered by the law as legal and considered by the law, by the culture, as essential for the American way of life, as essential for jobs, as essential for liberty, as essential for security, as essential for progress. We're trying all the time to persuade and convince elected officials who believe that that is the essence and the source of the progress and jobs and wealth and goodness and liberty and security in this country. And that the essence of that is the production of endless more, forever and ever and ever and ever. That anything that interferes with the production of endless more, with fewer and fewer people making the endless more, of course, is a menace, is a traitor to the American way of life. So going back again to we, the people, trying to organize and persuade, we keep electing these people who believe, who've been convinced by the corporate culture over the last 100 years, who maybe went to Harvard, or maybe went to MIT, or maybe went to Stanford, or the University of Washington, and they keep coming out, they're being taught that the essence of the goodness, the progress, and jobs, and liberty and freedom of this country is the ability to produce more and more and more of anything possible.
The typical circulation process of accumulation goes like this. You start with some money, you go into the market and you buy labour, power and means of production, and you put them to work with a given technology and organisational form. You create a commodity which you then sell for the original money plus a profit. Now, you then take part of the profit and you recapitalise it into an expansion for very interesting reasons. Now, there are two things about this. One is there are a number of barrier points in here. How is the money got together in the right place at the right time in the right volume? And that takes financial ingenuity. So the whole history of capitalism has been about financial innovation. And financial innovation has the effect of also empowering the financiers. And the excessive power of the financiers can sometimes, they do get greedy, no question about it. And if you look at financial profits in the United States, they were soaring after 1990. They're going up like this. Profits in manufacturing were coming down like this. And you could see the imbalance. In this country, I think the way in which this country has sided with the City of London against British manufacturing since the 1950s onwards has had very serious implications for the economy of this country. You've actually screwed industry in order to keep, financiers happy. Any sensible person right now would join an anti-capitalist organisation. And you have to. Because otherwise we're going to have the continuation. And notice it's a continuation of all sorts of negative aspects. For instance, the racking up of wealth. You would have thought the crisis would have stopped that. Actually, more billionaires emerged in India last year than ever. They doubled last year. The wealth of the rich, I just read something this morning, in this country has accelerated. Just last year, what happened was the leading hedge fund owners got personal remunerations of $3 billion each in 1 year. Now, I thought it was obscene and insane a few years ago when they got 250 million. But they're now hauling in $3 billion. Now, that's not a world I want to live in, and if you want to live in it, be my guest. I don't see us debating and discussing this. I don't have the solutions. I think I know what the nature of the problem is. And unless we're prepared to have a very broad-based discussion that gets away from, the normal kind of pablum you get in the political campaign and, everything's going to be okay here next year if you vote for me, it's crap. You should know it's crap and say it is. And we have a duty, it seems to me, those of us who are academics and seriously involved in the world, to actually change our mode of thinking.
All right, so there's a symbiotic relationship, you could call it, between credit markets and oil. It's been around for 30, 40, 50 years. As the global economy has grown, as you've seen the growth of globalization, as China has become globalized and Chinese people buying cars and buying more consumer goods, demanding more oil, the banks have fulfilled their consumer desires by expanding the credit markets, and the difference between the overall credit and the dwindling supply of oil has been masked somewhat because I guess what you could say is that the reserve requirements on these banks' balance sheets has been continuously deteriorating. If you talked about Basel and the Basel requirements for minimum reserve requirements for banks, they talk about cash on hand versus leverage. But they should be talking about global oil on hand versus leverage, because oil is the de facto standard upon which the global economy works. We don't actually operate on a gold standard anymore, but we do really operate on an oil standard. And therefore, what I hear from you now is that there comes a day when the oil simply runs out in a cost-effective production model, and therefore credit it's a coterminous situation. Credit simply collapses. Is that not so?
In late 2000, Saddam Hussein threatened to switch to the euro for trading oil and was pushing to convert Iraq's $10 billion reserve fund at the UN to euros. This information about Iraq's oil currency has been censored by the U.S. media for the interests of the White House, Federal Reserve, and most importantly, the international bankers. Here's why. A country cannot produce an economy without energy. If countries are forced to trade in their money for U.S. dollars in order to buy energy, the value of the U.S. dollar is increased proportional to the price of oil. So by then increasing the price of oil, you increase the amount each person has to now exchange for the same gallon of energy through the petrodollar, and the transaction balances out the deficit in the currency. This gives the currency its intrinsic value. Money's just paper otherwise. Meanwhile, the central and international bankers, who without this artificial bubble are in all reality bankrupt, can keep their currency from crashing. Now combine this with the fact that Iran and North Korea, the two other axes of evil, were also planning to switch off the US dollar to the euro. The picture starts to become clearer. The banking systems of the Western world and most of the globe rely on the commoditization of finite raw resources that are forcefully traded through the US dollar in order to keep their currency and economic frameworks afloat. Dishonest and corrupt banking practices around the world create an unnatural dependency on oil and other forms of energy. This is why economic hitmen like John Perkins say that their first job was to construct a power plant and loan third world countries the money at interest to pay for it, thereby enslaving them through debt and dependence on the energy and its infrastructure. In his book, The Best Way to Rob a Bank is to Own One, William Black details the process by which banks create money virtually out of nothing through a process known as fractional reserve banking.
The bold efforts the present bank has made to control the government are but premonitions of the fate that awaits the American people should they be deluded into a perpetuation of this institution or the establishment of another like it. Unfortunately, his message was short-lived, and the international bankers succeeded to install another central bank in 1913, the Federal Reserve. And as long as this institution exists, perpetual debt is guaranteed. Now, so far we have discussed the reality that money is created out of debt, through loans. These loans are based on a bank's reserves, and reserves are derived from deposits. And through this fractional reserve system, any one deposit can create 9 times its original value, in turn debasing the existing money supply, raising prices in society. And since all this money is created out of debt and circulated randomly through commerce, people become detached from their original debt, and a disequilibrium exists where people are forced to compete for labor in order to pool enough money out of the money supply to cover their costs of living. As dysfunctional and backwards as all of this might seem, there is still one thing we have omitted from this equation. And it is this element of the structure which reveals the truly fraudulent nature of the system itself: the application of interest.